From the Oregon State University Extension Service, this is Pollination, a podcast that tells the stories of researchers, land managers, and people like you who are making bold strides to improve the health of pollinators. I'm your host, Dr. Adoni Melathopoulos, Associate Professor of Pollinator Health in the Department of Horticulture. If you're a frequent listener of Pollination, you will notice that I've been absent over the last month or so, and I'm terribly sorry about this. We haven't had a podcast since April 26th. It's very embarrassing to me, but it has been a busy spring. As a good friend of mine once said, this is the season of kabloom. And our lab has been working vigorously. We've got several projects in blueberry pollination. We're evaluating different forages for their forage plants for their suitability for bees. Of course, there's the license plate. There's a revision of the Bees of Oregon activity book. And there's the new Bee Steward program that we enrolled this spring. And it's just had me hopping. But a real passion project of mine has been at the center of my attention, and that is bee-friendly wine here in Oregon. The Bee-Friendly Wine Initiative, you can learn about it by going to oregonbeeproject.org/wine. It has a number of components. One is taking this massive data set from our lab from the Oregon Bee Atlas, matching it up against the plants that we find on the vineyards, and helping those growers figure out which plants they're missing in order to encourage the highest bee biodiversity. But another really exciting part of it is we have a tour where you go to those wineries, to the tasting rooms, and you learn about the hedgerows they're putting in, about the landscaping they're doing, about mason bees. And this bee-friendly wine tour is what we're going to be talking about today. The podcast takes place at a picnic table at Sokol Blosser Winery in Dayton, which arguably that area creates some of the best Pinot Noirs in the world. And I was sitting across, I feel so honored, Susan Sokol Blosser. Susan is a giant when it comes to the wine industry in Oregon. Sokol Blosser was one of the first vineyards established this, the Willamette Valley as the prominent wine country that it is today. And Susan is widely acknowledged as one of the leaders in making that big shift. What's really great about Susan is she's not only deeply committed to growing fine wine, but she is an environmental steward who has been acknowledged for those efforts globally. So in this podcast, we're going to hear about the Bee-Friendly Wine Initiative, but we're really going to drill in on this case study of Sokol Blosser, how the Oregon wine industry has really set itself apart across the world in terms of really keeping an eye on both creating wonderful wine, but also doing so in a way that ensures environmental sustainability. So this week on Pollination, let's go up to the vineyards with Susan Sokol Blosser. Okay, well, Susan, welcome to Pollination.
Well, thank you. Pleasure to be here.
You can hear the birds chirping in the background. Someone might think we're in a nature preserve. We are at a very special place. We're at Sokol Blosser Winery today, doing a bee-friendly wine tour. And I think just to start with, Sokol Blosser has been around for a long time, a real industry leader, and sustainability has been at the core of sort of the philosophy of growing wine grapes here. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, when we first started, which is over 50 years ago, we thought of ourselves as environmentalists. What we have learned over the years is a deepening understanding of what that means. We have moved, we were conventional farmers when we started. We're now totally organic. Once we went organic, we could see a vibrancy in the vineyard that wasn't there in a conventional farm. There's just, you can feel the energy, and you hear the birds.
I can hear it.
The hawks circling, riding the airwaves. It's just really wonderful. And we have become part of the Prescott Western Bluebird Recovery Project, where we have bluebird boxes. This year we have, I think, 10 boxes, 7 of which have either eggs or chicks,
Oh my
bluebird
goodness.
chicks.
Wow.
The other boxes have, I'm trying to swallows, excuse me, have swallows, which are protected, and together those two species are our insect patrol. They don't eat grapes, they eat the insects. So that's part of our little ecology right now.
And I think we were touring with some of the patrons in the morning. We went by one of the boxes and we had a great view of this beautiful bluebird just darting out at full speed.
Yes, yes.
So in addition to the conservation, it's really remarkable where we're sitting right now. We're, in the heart of the vineyard. There are these grand, majestic oaks just towering above us, giving us all of the shade. You've also been interested in bees. You're a beekeeper yourself. Tell us how you got started in beekeeping.
Well, I got started because we had a swarm in the vineyard, and we hired, actually, he was a volunteer, a local beekeeper to come and get the swarm. And I thought, I should do this. And, I'm no longer running the winery. I have time to become educated on this. And we wanted estate honey. The bees are also part of our organic ecology. And they're amazing little creatures. I have so much respect for them. And we have now 6 hives, and they're very healthy this spring. We monitor them every 10 days. We go through every frame. So I feel very close to these bees.
Well, I know it's also, last year you grew a cover crop directly for your bees, and this year again, I could see what I could see when I drove by. You had those great heads of Phacelia just full of seeds, probably the last couple of weeks. The lacy Phacelia was just, your bees were all over it.
Yes. And the ceanothus is in bloom right now. They're all over that. You can just, when you go next to the ceanothus around our house, you can just hear the buzz as well as see the bees. They're happy.
Yeah, those California lilacs are just such a great bee shrub. They're and they stay green through the winter. They look nice. And then they just jam up full of bees at the right time.
Yes.
So I guess, maybe just tell our listeners a little bit about what we're doing today. So we did a tour for patrons. So people, and I think this original idea for the tour came from a conversation that we had that, vineyards are with tasting rooms are uniquely positioned to provide public education. So tell us a little bit about what we've been doing today.
Well, we invited people to come, and Anthony, you came with a lot of material to talk to them about. And we went around and looked at the plants. And the thing that was so amazing to everyone was how many different kinds of bees there are. And we saw a lot of them, and people were actually able to hold them and take a little picture of themselves with them. All different sizes, different colors. We're used to just honeybees and bumblebees, but there are so many more, and that was really an eye-opener to everyone who came.
One of the exciting things is being able to connect the plants that we've found bees on the Bee Atlas with the plants here that are growing either in the landscaped area but also the headlands of the vineyard. And I think one of the things that we had noted is when we back calculated and thought about there's 60 species of bees likely to be found. And when we were walking around with the patrons, we could see them. They were, as soon as you zoomed in, there was tiny little Dialectus, and there was these.
Well, it was so interesting to see that there were a number of species on the Coreopsis, and really only 2 on the lavender and the catmint, the honeybees and the bumblebees. That different species appeal to different bees. Everybody has taste, right? So that was very interesting.
It was good, and I think people kind of got that picture. It was really nicely laid out that they could, they could visualize by walking through the landscaped area of the tasting room how they could bring back home. Having some lavender would be great, but really they need also some coreopsis to fill out the picture.
Right, and I think they took away what they could do in their own gardens. For example, rather than buying one plant of this and another of this and another of this, they need a swath of the same thing because that's what the bees want. So you maybe don't have 12 different varieties, maybe you have 3 to 5, but you have larger sections of those.
Yeah, that is great, and I'm excited to think about where this goes next because, as part of this project and part of your own plans, you're building out pollinator habitat now, and that I can just imagine when people come in next year for the tour, they'll be able to see new additions, new elements of how you're trying to increase bee habitat on the farm.
Yes, because now that we know that this is something we can do and there are all these species of bees, we have some open areas that we could be planting seed mixes that are particularly appealing to a wide variety of bees.
And maybe just to conclude things, the one thing that I find fascinating about this is, people often ask me, I remember I posted on Facebook, we're doing the Bee Friendly Wine Tour, and somebody said, but you don't need bees for making grapes. Why do you think this is such a good fit between, bee conservation and I'm just looking at all the birds flying around, bird conservation, all of this? How does this fit in? Why is this sort of really well suited to wine growing?
Well, that's a good question because the grapes actually do not need pollination, but there are a lot of orchards around. There are a lot of vegetables around. I mean, we're all part of the whole, and bees are an important part of that.
Oh, it's great. And I was thinking, isn't there apricots right across? No, there's like a peach.
Well, there are fruit orchards.
Yeah. Right across the road here on 99. So that's great. So that you can sort of, by building this, it kind of becomes part of sort of a functioning ecosystem across this whole region.
Whole valley, you bet.
Well, thanks so much. Thanks for opening up your winery today to the public to learn about bees. And this, I'm excited to see all the things that you do in the future.
Well, it was my pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening. Show notes with links from each episode are available at the website pollinationpodcast.oregonstate.edu. I also love hearing from you, and there's a form at the website where you can pop in and say hello and give me feedback. If you want to support the show, remember to leave a rating on iTunes, Spotify, or whatever podcast mothership you use. And finally, if you have the means and you want to help support my lab's effort to document bee biodiversity in Oregon, visit OregonBeeAtlas.org and follow down to the donate button where you can make a tax-deductible donation to the Jerry and Judith Paul Native Pollinator Endowment. Every little bit helps. See you next episode.